Hi, I'm Vanessa from SpeakEnglishWithVanessa.com. Today I'm here with a special guest, Rachel from Rachel's English. If you have studied American English pronunciation, I'm sure that you've watched some of her super helpful and popular videos. Rachel runs the wildly popular YouTube channel Rachel's English. Let's see what she has to say about pronunciation. Hi, Rachel. Thanks so much for joining me today. I'm really happy to have you here.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure.
Yes, so a lot of my audience might already know who you are. If they've studied anything about pronunciation, I'm sure they've run across you, but can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how did you get into American English pronunciation?
Yeah, definitely. It's been a while. I started my YouTube channel back in 2008. And I was living in Europe and I was studying a lot of foreign language. I was an opera singer at the time, since retired. But yeah, I was working with a friend of mine who was in one of my German classes with me, and he wanted to sound more American. He was interested in American English because of all of the movies and the shows that Hollywood produces. And so I was giving him some tips, and I was sort of relying on my singing background to help me know what to say and how to say it. And he said, wow, you're really good at that. And I said, oh, well, thank you. And so I started making some videos.
That's awesome. So your singing background really gave you the skills to know how to use the certain muscles and how to explain it, kind of gave you the language to use to talk about pronunciation.
Yeah, I think so. It gave me a very different take than an academic track of studying, teaching English. I was totally relying on my body, what I felt, how I thought about things. And because of having sung opera for so long, I was very tuned into, all of the fine things that happen with the voice.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing that makes you really unique as far as pronunciation coaches or teachers or instructors goes, is you've got a different background. You haven't just been doing pronunciation, but you've also got that opera singing background. So that adds a different element that I think your students probably really enjoy.
Yeah, I think so.
Yes, yes. So I would like to ask you a couple questions about pronunciation because you
Mm-hmm.
are the go-to person for pronunciation. And there's a question I get all the time that my students ask me, and that is, should I focus on pronunciation? How important is it? What's your take on that question?
Well, the answer there is, how are you going to be using English? If you're going to be holed up in your room only writing emails, then no, your pronunciation doesn't matter at all. But most people are studying a foreign language because they want to speak it and they want to communicate with it. That's the whole point, is communication. So if your pronunciation is terrible, that's really going to get in the way of communication. I'm not in the business trying to tell people you should not have an accent. I'm just trying to help people be understood. Because that's really what it boils down to. If you're studying English, but no one can understand you, then all of that time is sort of wasted. If you study pronunciation as you're learning new vocabulary and learning grammar and how pronunciation relates to grammar, then you're really doing yourself a favor, because you're not going to have to go back and correct anything, and you're going to be able to be understood. So I think it's extremely important.
Yes, yes. And that's a huge boost for confidence too, when an English learner can say something without being asked, what did you say? That feels
Right.
great to just be immediately understood. So your goal is to help English learners be understood and sound as natural as they can, not to feel bad about their accent, but to speak as well as they can.
Correct. And for some people that are living in America, they do want to be able to speak and sound totally American, because they feel like it's getting in the way of their communication with people. People are always noticing and thinking, oh, that person's not from here, which I wish wouldn't matter to anybody, but I know does matter to some people. So it's really the goal of the student. Do you want to sound absolutely American? Then there are ways to try to get there. It's really hard. But if your goal is just to be understood, that's a more realistic goal. And I have a lot of videos to help people get there.
Definitely, definitely. And it seems like a lot of your videos are also going to help people to tweak their English enough to be able to be more understood and maybe lose some of their accent, but to be clearer in general, which is the goal. That's the most important thing.
Right.
Yes, yes. Well, I'd like to ask you another question, which is kind of about problems that English learners, some of your students, people who watch your videos might make. Are there any problems you think that English learners make when they try to study pronunciation? Any kind of errors that they might run across?
Well, definitely. There's a huge misconception I've found is that people want sounds. They think when I get all of the sounds, I'm going to be fine. And that is not even half of it. I would say it's like a third of it, maybe. The sounds are important to know, and a lot of people might be coming from a language that has many fewer vowel sounds or something, for example. So understanding the differences in the vowels and how these make different words, it is very important. But you're not going to be done when you've learned the sounds. And you actually need to learn much more about the character as you're learning the sounds than people think. Long versus short. The melody, the cadence of the voice. This is really where my opera singing background, I think, comes in handy is, hearing the melody, talking about how we use the voice, linking words together. What's the character that makes up American English? I think when people master the character, even if some of their sounds aren't quite accurate, it puts people at ease when they're listening. Because it's really easier to understand. When the character is there, that person becomes easier to understand. And so that is the main issue I come across, is people focusing purely on sounds and not understanding that sounds are just part of this broader character that needs to be understood.
Right, and people want their personalities to come through when they speak English, so getting the right natural intonation or character, as you said, is going to be a big point for that.
Definitely.
Yes, yes. Well, I'm curious, do you have any specific things that English learners who are watching this video can take away right now? What is something they could do now to improve their pronunciation?
It actually starts with listening comprehension. The two are linked very closely. A lot of people have a hard time understanding Americans. We speak very quickly, but there are actually tools that we're using that are allowing us to speak quickly but still be understood. And I'm actually publishing a video on Tuesday that I'm working on right now that goes over 5 important tips for improving your listening comprehension. Studying reductions, studying linking. There are specific things that you can study that will help you understand how Americans are speaking so quickly. Great. And once you figure out how to listen for those and find them, then you can start imitating them yourself. So when your listening comprehension improves, then you know what to work with. A phrase with a reduction. If you hear the reduction, then you think, oh, this is a phrase I can use. You practice it over and over, and then the next thing you know, your pronunciation of that phrase is better. But it has to start with understanding a native speaker saying it. So the two are very linked.
Yes, yes. And can you, just to clarify some vocabulary here, could you clarify what would be a reduction, maybe for people watching this who haven't heard you use that term before?
Yeah, sure. A reduction is when a sound is changed or dropped. I always use the example of the word for, F-O-R. And when we say it in a sentence, we don't say for. We typically say for. And it's very fast. It sounds like there's no vowel. And we use this word all the time. This is for work. This is for later today. And if you're expecting to hear for and a full pronunciation like that, then if you just hear for so quickly, you're probably not going to catch it. So not only will your listening comprehension be off, but your pronunciation will be off because you're pronouncing it for fully and clearly in a way that Americans don't. So that would be an example of a reduction.
Great. Thanks so much for giving us that. I think those are the small things that as you listen to English, if you don't catch those small things, you might miss the whole meaning. So catching that first is going to be the first step in using it and improving your own pronunciation.
Right, exactly.
Yes. So I'd like to ask you a final question about this awesome ebook that you've got out. Can you tell us a little bit about your American English pronunciation ebook?
Yeah. So I had been creating YouTube videos for something like 6 years. before I started writing the book. And one of the questions that I always got was, where do I start? You have so many videos. How do I work with them? And I realized that was a really hard question to answer in an email. And so I thought, it's important. It's time to take all of these little ideas that I've produced and come up with and put them into something comprehensive that someone can use to start somewhere and then get somewhere, get to where they want to be. So that was sort of the inspiration for it. And so that's what I've done. It's about 290 pages. And as I was writing it, I had my catalog of videos there and I just integrated them into the book. So the book has text, but then it links to a lot of the videos that will further illustrate what I'm talking about. And then I've also put in some audio, about 2.5 hours, to train a concept. So when you learn the concept by reading about it, looking at images, watching the video, then there's a little bit of audio that you can use to do some listen and repeat with.
Excellent, excellent. So it seems like there's reading, listening, and they can also imitate after you and try to shadow and speak and use it themselves. That's a lot of material. That's going to be so helpful for just organizing. I think that's a huge thing. You've got so much material that English learners love, but having it so organized like that can save time, help people to know that they're following the right path. They're not just spontaneously watching the next video. They're following what you think is the best order and method. That's awesome.
Yeah, and then any video that they happen to come across later, they can sort of fit it into their broader idea of the concept of studying. Also, I did work with my friend Tom, who's been in several videos, and so the audio is both male and female so that people can, sometimes males don't like imitating the female voice and vice versa. So there's examples of both in the audio.
Excellent. Thanks so much for telling us about that and just for creating such a great resource for pronunciation. That's an important piece of speaking English. And thanks also so much for explaining some about your background, giving us some pronunciation tips, and introducing yourself. I really appreciate it.
Sure, my pleasure.
And I hope that we can see you back soon to explain more about pronunciation. I'll link to everything that you mentioned, the listening comprehension video, your ebook, all your information below this video so everyone can check it out.
Awesome. Sounds great.
Great. Thanks so much, Rachel. Talk to you later.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye. To learn more with Rachel, click on the links here on the screen or below in the description. I'm sure you won't be disappointed. You will love learning pronunciation with her. Thanks so much and see you later. Bye. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to download my free ebook where you can learn 5 steps to becoming a confident English speaker. You can share it on Facebook, upgrade to the listening audio version, and don't forget to check your email to get the free ebook. Let's see what it is. All right, here is the free ebook. You can download yours today. Just click on the link and it will be in your email within a few seconds. Thanks so much for learning with me. Bye.